Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the AutoTrader Podcast, SA's number one motoring podcast. My name is Wandile Sishi, and I'm actually joined in a kind of a new hybrid setup by the AutoTrader CEO, Mr. George Mienie. How are you, George?
Hey, Wendy, how's it going? That Mr. part in the beginning is new.
Yeah, Mr. George Mienie. That's kind of a maybe it's a new thing I'll catch on, just between you and I.
Yeah, I'm not too big on titles, so George is fine.
Just George. Okay. Well, now you know, ladies and gentlemen, just George. Well, how's your week? We always talk about the weekend, but this time, we're recording a bit later. So
I know you don't want to hear this. I absolutely know you don't want to hear this, but the fact that Hamilton got beat again, I'm supportive of anybody who beats Hamilton.
I think you and about 50% of the world feels the same way, and I can understand it. When you've been dominating the game for 7 years.
No, I don't think it's about dominating. It's
what's it about?
Like, it's the same reason I think people don't like Jeff Bezos.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality of the matter is, Hamilton has kind of like flaunted his path to the championships that he's won, as being he was like so down and out and hard done by, which is a load of nonsense. We all know that.
I don't think.
He was helped along the way. Of course he was.
Of course.
And like everybody else. And then and a big part, you can see it now, a big part of his success is that car.
Well, you can say that about any driver. I think Michael Schumacher went through a similar thing. As soon as when he got to 5, 6, 7, the same thing happens. And I think a lot of people forget that F1 is a team sport at the end of the day.
It is a team sport. And I never hear him say anything about Schumacher. Schumacher was a bigger legend than he is, and I point to one thing that makes Schumacher a bigger legend than he is. Schumacher won the championship in 2 kinds of cars.
So did Hamilton.
Which was the previous?
The McLaren.
Yeah, and
the Mercedes.
What is he in? They were both the same team, right?
I mean, they were both Mercedes engines, but to each their own. I think he's the greatest athlete of all time, not just driver.
No. So, let's have this debate for a second. Schumacher won in the Benetton.
He won the Benetton, yes, and he did in the Ferrari.
It was a Ford engine, totally different team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's true.
And then he won multiple in the Ferrari.
I think that just speaks to Hamilton's loyalty and not to the fact that he can win with more than one car.
I'm always going to defend him. Anybody that beats Hamilton.
I'm always going to defend him. He's my guy. He's my guy. But anyways, let's talk about the episode. So we're 3 months down the line, and today's episode is actually called the quarter mile episode because we quarter way through the year 2022. So we're just going to unpack a little bit of what we said in the Ignition episode, which aired earlier this year in January, and see what has kind of happened now. And then we'll just talk about some of the changes in the markets that the consumer needs to understand, and some of the things that we think is kind of interesting to know. And then we'll just kind of unpack and summarize if we think it's going to be a good year following the first 3 months. Just kicking right off, what are your thoughts on the first 3 months of the year so far? What have you seen?
In terms of consumer search, I think we've started the year off in a really good place. We've got extensive data, obviously, AutoTrader, and consumers are utilizing our platform more than they ever have. We're growing at rates of double digit, 16, 17% in terms of visits to the platform. We're now over 32 million visits up year on year. So I think the start of the year has been flipping amazing, to be honest. And then also users are up 15%. So it's not the same users visiting more. There's more users visiting more, if that makes sense. Okay?
Yeah.
So we up almost 8 million users year on year. in terms of unique users. So there's more consumers choosing AutoTrader to find their next car.
I think it's quite interesting that you noted that. Something that we kind of spoke about earlier in the year in the Ignition episode, and I think towards the end of 2021, was this idea that consumers are going to be shopping online now. Obviously we know because of the limitations that people had in terms of going to a physical dealership, we had to kind of go that way. But is there anything else that you think consumers are changing in terms of the behavior when it comes to car shopping, and online car shopping specifically?
Well, the evidence is clear, and that is, consumers are spending less time in dealerships. It happened around the world. The pandemic and lockdowns forced it even more. And I think consumers are also getting sick and tired of the mind-numbing paperwork, and that goes along with the digital world and digitizing processes and digital transformation of the dealership itself and of the car shopping journey for that matter. So I think all in all, consumers want to do things online. Our research shows, let's take finance as an example. Our research shows that consumers want to do part or all of the journey. 80% of consumers want to do part or all of the journey for financing a vehicle online.
Okay.
We've done the research. It's clear, right? We launched the pre-qualification part of our platform a couple of weeks back. And we've had overwhelming success in that pre-qualification. So what pre-qualification is you search for a car. We give you an indication of what that car's monthly repayment is from a finance point of view. And then you can hit a pre-qualify button. As a consumer, you can go there and see anonymously whether you qualify for finance or would qualify for finance or not. It doesn't affect your credit score, and it's quite a short process to go through, just to kind of test the water, fill in a couple of details, and then we will tell you whether you might qualify or not. And chances are that you're not going to get declined. And then you can walk into a dealership with confidence once you've done the pre-qualification.
Is this specifically this research? Did you find that people were sometimes walking into the dealership, they get there, they think they can afford the vehicle based off what their initial sort of monthly installment estimate is, and then they find out that, wait, hold on, there's some nigglies there that that make you not qualify for the financing that you needed?
Definitely. Shopping without confidence. I mean, let's be honest. People don't like to be embarrassed. The people sometimes shy away from embarrassment. People are more afraid of being embarrassed than sometimes they are afraid of death. Think about it.
That's true.
People do not want to be embarrassed. I mean, do you want to be embarrassed, Wandile? Do you want to be turned down in a semi-public environment when you try and apply for finance? You don't. So this gives the consumer the ability to apply for finance with a little bit more confidence. We also tell the car dealer when you do submit the inquiry that you are pre-qualified. Okay. And then the dealer can also treat you with confidence because he knows that you're not going to be turned down by the banks. So consumers definitely walk into it. There is approval rates, or should I say decline rates, are very, very high. In the vast majority, when it comes to financing dealerships, the vast majority of consumers walk into dealerships and actually get declined for finance. Just because they
didn't have the confidence or the insight with regards to how much they can afford. This is kind of a stepping stone to make sure, but by the time you get there.
But it also goes down to deal structure. So structuring the deal with the deposit, the interest rate, which bank, and the dealer can do that. The dealers are very good at deal structuring. So if you've got if you're pre-qualified, you know that you're going to get finance. It's just now a matter of deal structuring. So if you do get declined in a dealership, ask the dealer, can they structure the deal in a way that you get approved? And the dealer in many instances can do that. Obviously, if you are listed on credit bureaus and you haven't been paying your accounts and you've been a naughty person, nobody can work magic. to that degree. So that's not going to happen. Get your act together and then go back. But we were talking about consumers. And the change in behavior. Consumers want these things. Consumers want to remain more anonymous. So doing the pre-qualification as a first step, just to kind of feel the water, will help the consumer shop for confidence, and will give the dealer the clear indication that this is a serious consumer that can afford the finance.
On that note of the research that we've done, I know about 80% of consumers actually said that they would actually complete the finance process online if it was available to them. And that's what you're alluding to. That's why these products now exist on the AutoTrader websites, to kind of facilitate that. And that's why consumers are moving for this convenience, I guess, which makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Is there any other products? I know there's Instant Offer, which we also launched, which is really big for us right now. That's also something else that consumers were asking for, and now they have that option, and it's all ultimately online.
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying. If the 12 million visits a month that we get onto the AutoTrader platform positions AutoTrader as a buying platform. So for consumers, a buying platform for consumers, not a selling platform. And we repositioning the brand as both a buying and a selling platform. So you can come to AutoTrader to sell your car as well. Now, there's lots of ways in which to sell your car. And I suppose if you put it on a scale, if you want speed of sale, so if you want to sell your car within days or a short number of weeks, maybe 2 weeks, as a matter of fact, Instant Offer is like 24, 48 hours. That's it. You can sell your car within hours. We have all those products available to sell your car. You can sell your car to another consumer through our traditional private-to-private offering. Costs a couple of $100 to advertise. Then you're going to get top dollar for your car. Okay, not you're not going to get double the price or whatever the case may be, but you're going to get retail price for your car. But it's going to take you weeks to sell. The higher the price, the longer it's going to take. Maybe it won't even sell because the price is in the right place and there's no demand. On the flip side of that, however, there is Instant Offer. An Instant Offer is effectively a car buying service. And we've got buying partners in the market that will buy the car off you as a consumer instantaneously. That's what's called Instant Offer. Literally, you put your car up on Instant Offer, very short space of time, you can sell it. So I encourage everybody, if you've got a car to sell, try out Instant Offer. You're under no obligation to eventually sell your car unless you actually part with it at the inspection. But that being said, that speed, you're not going to get retail prices with Instant Offer. You're going to get trade prices and slightly above. Dealers also have to make a profit out of the car, and consumers have to kind of weigh up the difference in retail price versus trade price. Trade prices are what Instant Offer is there to drive. So our buying partners then, along with AutoTrader, buy the car from the consumer, and then it gets back out into the retail market. And there is speed, and then there's something in the middle, which is our assisted sale, which is Sell It For Me at the moment, and then we vet the buyers of your car. So if you as a consumer want to sell your car and you want help doing it, you want access to OTPs, the process, you want to take the risk out, we can arrange the meetings, we can vet the potential buyers, and then you get closer to retail as well. So Instant Offer has actually taken off phenomenally since we launched it. We actually are battling to keep up with incoming volumes as a business, and so we've throttled it back in that we've limited the number of buying partners on the platform for now, and we've also limited the areas in which we offer the service. And in that way, we can start to scale up our operational service, because we don't want to open up the floodgates and not be able to handle the volumes. So,
I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you think by the end of the year, nationally, it's going to be a fully available product for basically anyone in the country with access, really?
Nationally, it's available now as we speak, right? But if you're sitting in hot as hell, which is a real town in South Africa. If you're sitting in hot as hell and you want to put your car on the platform, you can. You can put your car on platform, but the problem is you have to take that car to an area that we're servicing.
Okay.
So I mean, I know that's a little bit of a middle of the road answer, but the chances of us going to places like hot as hell by the end of the year, I doubt. We want to reach scale in the main areas first.
So that's kind of consumers moving onto the digital space. But I mean, there's some interesting data that's come out in the first 3 months as well. Over 263 million searches have come through for vehicles, which is staggering. It's about an 11% increase year on year. But can you guess what the top 5 most searched for models are? The report's going to be coming out, I think, in July or something. But for the first 3 months, do you think there's any cars which are possibly in that top 5? I obviously have the answers, but I want to see if you can guess first.
Well, I mean, Toyota's got to be up there, particularly the Hilux. Be interesting to see where Ford Ranger is faring because they were doing well, and Polo's got to be up there, and I'd say a BMW.
I think you're right. It's pretty much in all of them. So the top 5 is Toyota Hilux, which was the new most searched for model. It seems like its domination is kind of it's still being felt, and I think it's important for people to understand that this is only since pretty much lockdown where the Hilux was starting to overtake the Golfs and the Polos. So it's really interesting to see that it's still continuing that trend. In second place was the Polo. Third place, the Golf. The Ford Ranger is now in 4th position. The BMW 3 Series is now in 5th. It is the beginning of the year. Most cars are sold during this time, or basically a higher volume of vehicles are sold during this time. So this can still change. It can really still change, but I can't see the Toyota Hilux being sort of taken away from that position anytime soon, even by the Haval-Joliens and, the Navara that's pushing the numbers really high now.
People are creatures of habit, and that's seen worldwide. And like take for instance, the iPhone is very dominant in America. Much more dominant than anywhere else in the world. And 80% of consumers that buy an iPhone, right, don't use WhatsApp in America. They use the default messaging platform, which is iMessage. I
had no idea about that. That's news to me. Yeah.
WhatsApp is really only an outside of America thing. And that's because people are creatures of habit. They everyone else is using iMessage, so they use iMessage, and I think car buying is no different. Toyota Hilux got in early, really good product, but it's a trusted brand.
Specific Hilux or Toyota or both, really?
Pardon?
You saying Toyota or Hilux, or as a model?
Well, Toyota as a brand, but Toyota Hilux particularly, and don't forget, South Africa is a bucky nation.
It is.
And Toyota Hilux and Ford Ranger being two buckies up in the top 5 just shows you that.
I want to give you a little bit of a secret now, but the Navara, the Unison Navara, is fastly becoming one of the most searched for vehicles, or the fastest growing in terms of searches currently. And it's to that point exactly. South Africa is definitely a bucky nation. That's where people want to be. They want to be in buckies. And it shows. I think it was double cabs. They remain the top searched for body type, 16% increase year on year. So they're becoming even more popular.
It's surprising that there's no SUVs up there. We've got the Polo, the Golf, and the BMW 3 Series. They're all sedans or hatchbacks. Where are the SUVs?
I mean, they're there, but it's still early days, first 3 months. We just know what we know so far. Let's talk about car sales a little bit.
Before we get to car sales, I think it's a case of in the rest of the world, SUVs and sedans are the thing. In South Africa, I think the SUVs put to the post by the buckies, the double cabs.
I agree. I think what an SUV can do, South Africans see.
SUV.
Yeah, what an SUV can do, South Africans see a bucky is doing the same and more. And I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so car sales. Car sales in January were up 20%. In February, they're up from 37,000 to 44,000. So we're seeing that the numbers are once again growing and becoming stable again, which is very positive. Do we see that March is going to be a dampener in all of that?
I don't know. I think consumers are still opting for used because of a variety of reasons. The biggest of which are is the silicon chip shortage, which is causing downward pressure on volumes of new car. So I think this world that we're in is going to continue as it is for the next year. Agreed.
I think a few things have happened since then. There's been a lot of changes in the market as well. I think the big one for us is petrol price. For the first time ever in the history of South Africa, we're paying more than 21 Rand per litre. And you did an interview on CakeNet where we were talking about this exact thing. Do you want to just repeat a little bit what you think the increase in petrol price is going to have for the consumer? Are consumers going to still be buying cars?
Well, consumers will always be buying cars. We saw that during the beginning of lockdown. People didn't have to drive, but we definitely saw an increase in search for cars and sales, and it's continued to rise. Now, let's not forget the silicon chip shortage problem and the supply of new car that has driven a lot of that. However, I think the principle is consumers didn't stop buying cars, and I don't think that this is any different. The petrol price increase. Consumers just change how they buy cars, what they buy. That's what they change. So I'm assuming that what might happen, and the proof of the pudding is going to be when we get there in the eating. I think what's going to happen is consumers are going to go to more fuel efficient cars. They're going to move towards lighter cars, smaller engines. If the fuel price is consistently high. I don't think consumers will knee jerk right now. They will try and ride the fuel price out to see if it comes down. If it doesn't come down, however, I see the market the consumer market downgrading to more fuel efficient cars. Now, you've got to ask yourself, well, that leaves three categories of cars that consumers can go for. The one category is a smaller car. So you go down from a 2-liter engine down to a 1-liter engine, as an example. Okay, 4-cylinder to a 3-cylinder, and you can skin the cat that way. The other way to skin the cat is to move to a diesel-powered car. So fuel price increases could effectively mean more diesel sales or more diesel purchases. And I'm very keen to watch that on our platform to see if there's more diesel purchases or sales. Because let's be honest, diesel engine vehicles are much more efficient than petrol engine vehicles when it comes to fuel economy. It's worse for the environment, but the consumer doesn't think about the environment when they're buying a car, by and large. And then the third place that consumer behavior could shift to is electric vehicles. And I don't see that happening in the near term at scale because we haven't reached that magic average number of 500,000 vehicles.
31% increase in fuel price in March alone. Very high, but I mean, I'm still driving. I'm still filling up. I'm still, it obviously hurts my pocket a little bit more, but like you're saying, we have to kind of go with or roll with the punches of what we currently have. And this is kind of the situation that we're sitting in. So 100% agree with that. I think we're almost out of time, but just in summary, do you think it's going to be a good year, George? Should the consumer be worried about what happens next? Should the consumer still search for cars? Would you recommend buying cars right now?
I am not I'm not a negative person. I think consumers by and large should not let themselves get sucked into the negativity of the environment. It is the most exciting time to be alive. And all the pressures that we're feeling as a human race or species, it's never been better, to be honest. If you rewind back 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, life was tougher. Disease could kill you easily. Look we just got through freaking COVID-19. We beat the bloody thing.
Yeah.
If COVID-19 was here 100 years ago, what do you think would have happened? We'd have had another flu epidemic. Look at how many people died in the last flu epidemic. Okay, so yes, things are tough, but we haven't lived long enough. Nobody lives long enough to really see, past about 2 generations. So it's very. So I'm not a negative person, and if you say to me a thing's going to get better, they're going to get worse. Like, they can only get better, and they can only get better if we make it better. And that's the way I navigate the world, is how do I make things better in the short, medium, long term, even in a tough environment? How do you incrementally just get better and better and better?
100% agree with that. I mean, the numbers, it doesn't really matter what we say. Consumers are searching. Consumers are buying more cars.
The sun will rise tomorrow one day, and there will still be cars. The sun will set tomorrow night. The wind will still blow. The planet will still spin, and the earth will still go around the sun, even if the interest rates double. And guess what? That's not going to kill us.
For sure. Well, we are squarely out of time. That was the Quarter Mile episode. I'm really excited to see what happens in the next 3 months of the year. But anything else you want to leave us with, George?
Well, I'm really excited for this year because, we're at the back of COVID-19, the pandemic, the lockdowns. Hopefully there's no kind of fourth wave. Is it fourth wave now in winter? Hopefully that doesn't come. I'm really glad about the progress in terms of how lockdowns have been eased. The new car pressures are still there in terms of supply, but I think those will be eased as the semiconductor companies manufacture. As a matter of fact, we should have an entire episode on the semiconductor issue. And the reason I say that is because it's a little known fact that the semiconductor world is controlled pretty much by one company in, I think it's Japan.
Or Taiwan? Not Taiwan.
It starts with a T. I'll tell you now. It's a Japanese company.
TSMC.
Yes, that's
one,
it.
Yeah. From Taiwan. I know about the story. I think we'll definitely cover it in one of the shows incoming soon.
So they are pretty much the bottleneck because they just can't produce fast enough. They're not the bottleneck for negative reasons. They just can't produce enough. The demand exceeds the supply. Whereas pre-lockdown, pre-COVID-19, the demand didn't exceed the supply. Now it's very different. Everybody has started to set up home offices, more consumer electronics. I mean, look at all the electronics around me, around you now, because we have to do this over Zoom.
Agreed. That's pretty much all we have time for. Thank you so much for joining us again, George. We'll see you guys next week.
Recording stopped.